Hello, everyone, and welcome to day 2 of MSP's April Virtual Summit. MSP University, get your PhD in PipeGen. Yesterday, we kicked off with a super active panel on sales and marketing alignment, followed by roundtable discussions on PipeGen, and closed out the day with the one and only Jeremy Donovan dropping the mic and sharing the definitive guide to forecasting. If you missed the sessions or if you really want to relive the glory, everything's available on the MSP YouTube channel. So check that out if you haven't. And because I'm mentioning YouTube, I think I have to mention, please mash that subscribe button or whatever the kids say these days. Before I go into today's agenda, I just want to give a quick thank you to the MSP University sponsors. Everything we've done, all the content that we've put together, all the speakers that we've got, all the coordination behind the scenes wouldn't be possible without the generous sponsorship of these organizations. And a special thank you to the teams at Spiff, Zoom Info, and SalesLoft. They're the strategic sponsors for this week's summit. And of course, nothing we do at MSP is possible without the hard work of Nora, Gina, Hannah, Taylor, and Elizabeth, the team behind the scenes. They're a small but mighty team, and they have a hand in absolutely everything that we do at MSP. Without them, we're simply not here today. So to everybody behind the scenes at Team MSP, thank you all so, so much. Now, yesterday, we set the bar really, really high, but I'm confident that today is going to be even better. Coming up, we've got 3 awesome sessions, starting with our upcoming panel on data-driven prospecting. Followed by, for the first time ever, we're gonna have a sit down with Kevin and Katie Dorsey, where we're gonna discuss the future of inside sales and sales development. And then finally, Spiff co-founder Tanner Lacey is gonna be diving into the importance of a sales engineering team. And spoiler alert, it's pretty damn important. So with that, let's jump into this morning's panel on data-driven prospecting, or the role of data in building more pipe more quickly. And I'm really, really excited to introduce our panelists here today. Look at those mugshots, just soak that in. There's some faces on there that only moms could love. But first, I'm gonna hand it off to Lem Loyd to introduce himself. And Lem, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Richard. Great to be part of it. I had to look long and hard to get that photo, early college days. So it's great to see all the other photos. So I'm based in San Francisco, near Palo Alto. I run sales and BD for a company called BuzzBoard. We're a data intelligence platform company. We work with a lot of enterprise companies to help them with data enrichment, segmentation, and lead gen. And we really focus on the small to medium-sized business space. So we go in, enrich data for a lot of customers, help them with segmentation. And then we also work with their inside, outbound call center folks as well. We have tens of thousands of reps across the country that use our service, companies like GoDaddy, Verizon, places like that. So we've seen a lot. We continue to see a lot and learn a lot of new things. I also used to run sales at a company called Angie's List, which is now part of Home Advisor. And I used to have 700 folks in call centers, kind of doing the activity every day. So I kind of see it from both sides, both from the marketing data side, working with lead gen folks now, and also from the sales seat side. So really excited to be part of the panel today.
Hey guys, I'm Sam McKenna. Thanks, Lem, for going first and taking that stage. Richard, again, I really applaud you. We were verifying that you have had hair in the past, so kudos to you. I'd also like to state I got a lot of questions about whether or not I had a mullet in this picture. I did not have a mullet. My hair was pulled back, half back, so just to clear the air there. I'm Sam McKenna. For any of you guys who don't know me, I'm the founder of Sam Sales, #Sam Sales Consulting. You can find me on LinkedIn for any tangible, practical tips. Our company does everything from run a BDR Slack hotline where we educate BDRs day in and day out. We rewrite tons of content for your outreach, SalesLoft, Groove, all of those platforms. And we do a bunch of things on our side, including speaking here. My career has been 15 years in enterprise sales, and I was running a line of business for sales, LinkedIn Sales Navigator before starting Sam Sales. So have had a lot of experience under my belt. From a data perspective, I think, what I love about data is a lot of our clients come to us and they're like, what's the latest hack? And how do we go get more, meetings and leads and more data in? And I'm like, well, let's be really smart about the data that you already have, because we've got tons of leads and we've got MQLs and things that we're not doing anything with. So before we reinvent the wheel, let's take a look at what we've got now, and we could be so smart about the pipeline you build.
Hey everybody, I'm Will Ritchings. I'm a BI analyst at SecurityScorecard. Talking from the cybersecurity sector here. SecurityScorecard is a cybersecurity ratings company that helps companies monitor their third-party risk management. Sam, loving the energy today. Really hoping that'll carry us through. Really excited to be here, guys. I'm a member of the revenue operations team, and a lot of the work that I do is with our marketing and our biz dev team to help identify pipeline and just improve our systems on the back end. Really looking forward to adding that data geek touch to today's conversation.
Hi, everyone. My name is Valari Faccenda. I am the Director of Commercial Sales, also have a sales development team rolling up to me at a company called Hyperscience. Been at Hyperscience for about 2.5, quickly approaching 3 years now. And I was originally brought on actually to build a sales development team from scratch, which required a ton of data and nothing to really start from. So I'm really excited to be speaking on this panel with these folks today because over the past 2.5 years, the entire reason why the sales development team is the team that it is today, and why I've been recently given an opportunity to build and grow a mid-market team is because of the role that data has played in helping me to build those organizations into what it is right now. So thanks again to the MSP community for having me, and excited to chat with all of you.
This is going to be a fun one. And Chris, unfortunately, won't be joining us here today, but you can see a great embarrassing picture of him as well, just like all of our other panelists. Before we jump in today, just 2 housekeeping notes for everybody in attendance. First and foremost, please do use the Q&A panel. In the Q&A panel, you can upvote and respond to others' questions in there. That's just going to help us make sure we're balancing the conversation amongst the panelists. And the second, before like 8 people ask, the recording is going to be going up on YouTube. Those will be done tonight. So this evening, all of you will receive an email with the recordings and the key takeaways from the day. If you're a super eager beaver and want it as soon as it's fresh off the presses, just go ahead and check us out on YouTube. That's going to be where it goes. So with that, panelists, everybody buckled up, ready to go? No mullets anymore for any of us, unfortunately, but let's talk about this. So when we think about data and we think about data in PipeGen, data plays a very important role in both personalization and automation. And I'd like to start with Val. How do you think about kind of folding data into both your personalization story and some of what you're doing from an automation standpoint?
Yeah, well, this hits home for me, right? Because about 2.5 years ago when I started at Hyperscience, we didn't have any data to start. It was all about, trial and error and experimentation and figuring out what works and what doesn't. And so, part of that was just like start, you have to get started somewhere. And then you use data to iterate upon that. You either can improve it if it's not working, or you build on to what is working. I worked at a company called CB Insights a couple of years ago, and their slogans, one of their mottos, it has stuck with me since then. And it's just, without data, it's only an opinion. And that just really, really resonates with me in every single thing that I do. The other piece of that is like, we are extremely fortunate, in this day and age to have the amount of tools that we do under our fingertips, whether it's SalesLoft or Outreach or LinkedIn Sales Navigator or Groove or any of all those, tools that we're using on a day-to-day basis. Use them to get the data that you're looking for to then iterate and improve.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of tools in the sales stack. Jeremy and I were actually chatting about, I think it's like 17 is what your average sales team has when you start to layer in everything else, which is just crazy. But I want to actually hand this next part off to Will as the man who's got to figure out how it all interoperates. But how have you seen, yeah, good luck with that. It's only 17 tools. How have you seen the utilization of data when there is actually so much? How are the teams that you're supporting kind of using it here?
Rich, it's 17 plus. I think, especially in the startup space, man. No, it's a really interesting topic. When you have so much data available, I mean, companies, that's the issue, isn't the issue in today's age isn't not having enough data, it's having way too much. If you ever heard the term paralysis by analysis, you'll know that that's more present than ever. But what you do, I think, when it comes for sales and marketing, I think it's important that we use the data to advise ourselves in every step of the way, right? From identifying, using your data, using your tools and your tech stack to identify and hone in on your target audience, right? Within your TAMs. And then moving forward, keep using those data points and just letting them, understanding that I'm sorry, my internet's a little shaky.
No, you're good. Gina, don't worry. We don't have to tag you in. Everyone's doing fine. I think what you're saying here, Will, is there's an important role that data plays in kind of identifying who we're going to target. But I think we need to be pretty smart about how much and when we kind of use that all, right?
Right. Yeah. In today's world, I think even before you talk to someone, you dial that phone number, you chances are, who they are, their entire sales background, their employment history. You might know what's in their 401k, but you have to be smart about when you leverage that data, right? I think, especially for our marketing automation, we used a lot of that to understand how our audience is engaging with our own platform. You get to see data points like how much time they're spending on a certain page or what features they're using. But have you ever gotten that phone call where right after you click on a live demo, you get that email from the team that says, "Hey, I noticed you clicked on that demo. It can seem a little too much like Big Brother." So you have to be smart about how you use the data that you're intercepting, how you're receiving it, because you want it to seem like a coincidence. Not necessarily like, we're tracking your every movement.
No, I think that's a great point. And Sam, I know this is something you feel incredibly passionate about it, but so is there a silver bullet? I know you're a big proponent of show me, you know me, but show me the hack. Is there a hack, or are we just hard work?
There's totally a silver bullet in sales, and here it is. No. Just kidding. There's no silver bullet. We know this, right? I think, Will makes a good point. So we have to be smart about how we use data. But I think when I really talk to sales leaders and sales individuals, the thing that we keep coming back to is really nailing the basics. So think about a couple of things, right? We have access to very basic data that we just don't use. So let's pretend like Val and I were not on this session together. And let's say Val was introduced to me by you, Richard, and Richard, you were like, Val, you should use Sam Sales. This is great. I have two choices when I do that. I can respond and be like, Val, great to meet you. Here's my Calendly link to book time with me. Or I could just go to Val's LinkedIn profile and I could see who she knows. Do we have people in common? Where has she worked? Has she worked for clients of Sam Sales in the past? How can I use just the most basic data to increase my credibility with her, to increase the rapport that I build with her, the trust I build with her? Imagine if I go, Val, and I'd love your feedback on this, but Val, if I send you an email and I'm like, hey, I see that you know Bill Johnson, I don't know how well you know each other, but he's a client. And you were like, oh my God, Bill and I were actually roommates in college. Now Richard has recommended me and we know the same person. You're probably instantly more
Totally.
Ready, right?
Absolutely. There's just that warm introduction, right? And
Right.
I would be very willing to talk to you.
Yeah, I think it's amazing though. When you say that there's that warm introduction, people are like, oh yeah, duh, of course, warm introductions, totally. It happens so infrequently, right? Where an AE got on the phone with me the other day and they're like, I'm going to call out to this company called On24. Have you heard of it? And I'm like, I worked there for 6 years. And they're like, oh, and I'm like, oh. Right? Just for the love of God, do your research. So very easy way to use basic data before we go off the charts with all the other data we have access to.
I think the other part on that too, just on the referral case, aside from the grossness that is, oh, cool. Hey, Val, here's my Calendly. Do that quickly, please. If I refer you, Sam, into Val and 3 days later, you're like, oh, hey, Val, let's talk.
Richard, you had to have read my LinkedIn post today. That is exactly what I posted about this morning. Okay, so real quick, let's get this out in the open. I had three friends that referred 3 people to me in the last 2 weeks. A minimum of 4 business days and a weekend went by before they reached back out. When you get a referral, right? Like there's 2 reputations on the line. The person who referred you. So Richard, your reputation's on the line for telling Val that I'm an okay person, and my reputation, like, Virgin forgets the word. Move your buns. Let's go.
Yeah, it's like a 1 hour SLA for anybody. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure we got that point out there, because I did, personalize that comment because I had done my research and watched and read Sam's LinkedIn this morning. So,
well played, my friend.
Lem, you've got kind of an interesting perspective on this as well, just based on the nature of how and who you sell to at BuzzBoard. How do you kind of think about the data, and how has it been used to prospect into you?
Well, right. I mean, I think we work with a lot of companies that are targeting, as you know, the small to medium-sized business space, which is really 99.7%. So I think the personalized approach is great if you can do it, but I think all of us have gotten kind of sick with the cutesy personal kind of approaches. You really need to know if that business is growing or if it's at the right stage for your product. So we spend a lot of time, both to Will's point, looking at the ICP of these companies and understanding what is their ICP, what is the TAM for that. So are they trying to reach folks that are actively hiring, buying a certain technology, adding a new location, those very specific data points. And then obviously putting all that data into their CRM, their marketing platform, and then giving it to their reps in the right way. Because I think that the danger here is, as Will said, if you have so much information, a lot of reps spend too much time researching a company before they actually qualify a company. And I think that's because of their confidence level or whatever. So you have to really kind of narrow your prospect list really, really fine. And then that allows the rep to spend the amount of time that they need to do the research. But otherwise they can spend, hours and hours of time researching a company, and it's not really the right company for what they sell. So I think those are some common mistakes.
Lem, it's a great point. I think, if you're a BDR, if you're an account exec, you have to find that balance between doing the research beforehand to find, to be able to personalize your responses, but you still have to make the call. You still have to get the numbers, and in some sense it is always and will always still be a numbers game. So how much prep is too prep? It's a really interesting point. I think the key is to find 1 or 2 personal items, right? 1 or 2 things within that ICP, within the industry, or your target audience. Whether it's you're targeting a C-suite, you're targeting a particular industry, or a company size, to your point, like SMB or mid-market. Using those and then employing them without delaying, right? It's really jumping on that. And to Sam, to your point, if it's a referral or if it's a connection, leverage it right away, because especially if you have a hot lead like that, chances are they might have said something on their end, and these are busy times, and people move pretty quick, so you need to hop on those.
I think there's a lot there, and there's a couple live questions coming in that I want to make sure that we get to. And Val, let's actually start with you for this one. So this is a question from Sierra, and her question is just thoughts on here's the link to my calendar and this is a scenario, right? It's not just all the time, but for an SDR that's following up with an inbound lead, how can we think about that?
Yeah. So when we get an inbound lead, my first reaction is pick up the phone and call them. I remember hearing somewhere that, conversion is 100 times more likely if you respond to an inbound lead within the first 5 minutes of them reaching out. Yeah. So if you have their phone number, go for it. You've earned that right because they've reached out to you. The second option is, of course, if they don't respond, you leave a message, you follow up with an email. And I'm totally all for hey, saw that you requested some information on X, Y, and Z. Here's my calendar link, feel free to go ahead and book some time. Mm-hmm. I like this because it removes the back and forth of let me know when you're free, or here are times I'm available, when are you available? So I like that just completely removes those 3 steps.
I think I've got, I agree on the reaching out like quick, right? Like you were just saying, Richard, like the SLA of like an hour for the referral, but Val, you're so right. You know, that's 0 to 5 minutes. Like that truly, there's this, what was it like Inside View, I think, or Inside Sales and Harvard Business Review had that graph, that black and green graph from like, I don't know, 2013 that said that, right? And then like it's a cliff after that, every minute that goes by that you don't reach out. I think the Calendly link, the reason I'm so against it is I think a couple things. One, like even though it's an inbound lead, it still feels lazy to me. It's like, you book time with me as the BDR, right? Like we're courting our clients, like we want to give them a good impression, but even for the convenience, like I still think about it that they've got 2 views. They've got our calendar and then they've got to pull up theirs and then they're like here and then no, that doesn't work. And it's back and forth. So our process on our side is just to say, thanks so much for reaching out. So excited to talk to you about whatever the hell it is you clicked on. Could you send some times that work for you on your side? We'll make it work on our side and then send a calendar invite accordingly. I was going to say 2 other things on that. One, I've seen that the Calendly link delay a meeting by like upwards of 2 weeks, right? So if you've got multiple stakeholders, we can't find time together. You might have internal meetings on your calendar and they're like, they don't know, what to ask you to reschedule, so they won't. Or you could be completely unbusy and they click on your calendar and everything is open and they're like, I can't wait to work with you. So I think good points of view all around though.
I think this is one of the things where for AE productivity, I think a lot of tools are moving in the direction of what Mixmax has. So Calendly is very like, here's my calendar. Lem, what of the available slots would you like? But you have to do a bunch of work to do that. Sam, to your point, one of the features I personally use as like GM AE productivity is here's like 5 slots that are available, pre-populated with an agenda and everything. And that's the right mix of, I don't want anybody to know, it's Friday and maybe I'm kicking out early because I'm in Florida now. But I think that's an interesting approach that kind of splits the difference there.
I dig it.
The other question and I wanted to pose this to the audience. Lem, I'll let you weigh in on this first, but I have a question for the group kind of on this topic as well. No, Lem, go ahead. I saw you pop off mute there.
Well, no, I was just going to say that I think we're talking a lot about when it gets to the AE or the SDR, but the real, I think, problem that we see is when there's not the right data in as the foundation layer. So for the folks that are running companies, doing data and lead gen and management, a lot of times when we go in, the data is just, kind of awful. And it could be so much better. So it's the old broadcast, adage, garbage in, garbage out. Meaning if you go to a shoot or a movie and you're shooting and you have garbage for your B-roll, then no matter how great of an editor you are, you're still going to have a bad product. So I think that, I think the sales teams need to also make sure that the data into the system and the prospect data is really the right data. And I would just encourage folks on the call that given all the different providers out there and everything, there are so many free data tests that you can do to ask a company to say, hey, here's 1,000 records, show me your match rate, show me, my TAM, I'll give you the file and then I'll give it back to you with all this enriched data and this segmentation to take advantage of that because it's free. And the better you can get your data, as we all know, in the system, the more likelihood the SDR or the AE is going to have success, regardless of whether they personalize with, I went to this school, you went to that school, or all that stuff. So that's really where it should start.
I think great points there. One question I wanted to pose to everybody on this sort of calendaring thing, because it's an important part of initiating the potential for revenue event to happen, is going completely calendar first too aggressive with an inbound. And by that, I mean, hey, Will, I appreciate you downloading this amazing resource. I took a shot in the dark and put some time on your calendar for next week for us to talk about. Is that too aggressive?
I don't like that.
I want the perspective across the board. Will, what do you think?
That's a tough one, Richard. I've seen it work and I have seen it not work. Again, I mean, people are busy, right? And I think that move, that play is trying to tell the prospect that, okay, I know you're busy. I'm busy too, but I still think this is important, right? So let's skip the 3 p.m. Oh, I can't make 3 p.m. How about 4? And let's just book a meeting. but I do think that, you know, in a sales culture that there is a little bit, you know, there's a bit of, you know, what's the right word? I guess like there's the personality behind it. I think it's a little bold, if I'm being honest. It can save time. It has worked, but I don't personally love it.
Val and I have the same point of view, so I'll just let her speak for us.
I'm a hard no on that. I just feel like there are boundaries, right? And totally, there needs to be some context taken into account too. Like, what did this person do that they're coming in as an inbound lead? Did they just read a piece of content or click on a link? Like that to me doesn't even require you to even offer some time. I think it's, you know, drawing a reference to what they did and why it's valuable, and like offer an opportunity to speak. But I just think, and maybe I'm biased because the people that we sell to at Hyperscience, they are, you know, high level executives, you know, at the world's largest organizations across, you know, government and healthcare and insurance and financial services. So I'm putting myself in our prospects' shoes. And if an SDR just threw time on my calendar, I'm squirming in my seat a little bit.
Totally. I think it just doesn't show, it's not enough, high enough intent, you know, activity. Like if we're looking at a contact us page or a request a demo page, game on. If they're just accessing data and content, you know, and Lem, you might feel differently, but yeah, no, don't do it. And in fact, I would probably be like, I will never work with you now because you do it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I do think that it is a useful tool to do that. And it really depends on the channel that you're working at. So once again, I go back to if you're going after mid-market or something like that, folks that are running their own business and might not have 150 or, you know, people in the marketing department, it's a very useful way to do it, to force a meeting, to force a call. But I think you also need to give some value associated with that. So when you set up the calendar link and you set up the meeting, you can say, hey, I want to tell you what your competition is doing in your vertical. So I think that's also another way where data can come in, because you can tell me everything about my business, but you know what? I know about my business. So why are you telling me that? Who gives you the right to tell me what I should do? But if you tell me what 3 of my competitors are doing, and then that's something I might find valuable. Okay, kid, I'll give you a chance. I might show up to the meeting. So I think it's a good tool. But once again, it depends, as you guys said, you know, if you're sending it to the CEO or the CMO, it's probably a little bit different story. But you need to give value, because the bar has been raised so high for all of us now. My phone number has gotten into the ether, and I'm getting all these, you know, phone calls. Contact data is not data. Just because you have my phone number, you know, to this point, it almost pisses me off more if somebody calls me, they get me on the phone, and I ask them, I said, what do you think we do? And they have no idea. They say, you're in technology and computers, because that's what their little data sheet says, whatever the heck that is, right? And I said, yes, I do deal with technology and I use computers, but they have no friggin' clue what we really do. So therefore, the contact is not really enough data. You got to know what stage I'm at to really have a conversation with me.
No, I think it's a great point. Pete Kazanji, the founder of Modern Sales Pros, actually has a chief bottle washer on his LinkedIn. So he gets inbounded, and it makes the personalization, which I know we'll talk about in a little bit, but it makes the personalization hysterical. It's like, I see as chief bottle washer, you know, you should buy our CRM or whatever. And it's just like, I mean, kudos to Pete for trolling, but also like, damn, like take a second, and back to Lem's point, like validate that a little bit further here.
This is like Kyle Lacey changed his the other day at Lesson Late, a chief Mario officer, and put a little Mario Brothers hat on, a little mustache. But it's amazing to see what comes through as chief Mario officer. I bet you'd want to buy our CRM platform, and you're like, cool.
I mean, the interesting for me, and I mean, this happens to me too, like general manager, I get hit up with all sorts of random restaurant stuff all the time. It's like, oh, I see as a general manager, you're probably concerned about like, you know, recycling. And it's like, I mean, I am, but I don't think, you know, that's not going to help my completely virtual business here. Another great live question coming in, and we actually touched on this a little bit at the beginning when we were talking about kind of referrals and all that. And Julie Greenfield is a great question from her about when someone maybe asks for a referral and you're like, they've broken the SLA too many times, or you're like, you know what, I don't want to put my reputation on the line like that. And her question is, how do you reply when you are not willing to make that referral? Do you give them some context on why? Like, how do you handle that? Will, let's start with you on this one, and then we can see other panelists' perspectives too.
Sure thing, Richard. I'll start by saying that it is always a case-by-case situation. Chances are that they exceeded that SLA of 1 hour, and they said, oh, I did reach out to them, but it was a month went by and they forgot who you were, what happened, or it's somebody for the first time. I think, you got to use your gut for these. Depending on who the person is and their relationship to you, I think there's a level of honesty and transparency that you can apply to that. Look, if it's a close friend of yours, but the referral is a shot in the dark, or it's just something that they're not qualified. I think I'd rather, if I was on the receiving end of this conversation, I would like to know the reasoning, knowing that it's coming from a trusted source. In the event that it's a stranger, somebody you don't have a great relationship with, that could very well be the cause for your hesitancy. And I think there's ways around that. You can point them to resources about the company, or even just ask them additional questions, dig a little deeper to understand, why are they pursuing this? What do they want the referral for? Sort of what are their intentions behind asking you for this? Understanding the personalization behind their request, and then being able to respond from there.
I think just really quick to add to that, if you are the quick note, if you're the AE or anyone asking for a introduction or a referral, I think one of the things that you should do is give them an out, right, in your request. So like if you ask for a recommendation on LinkedIn, say, I understand if it's against corporate policy, just give them a crutch. So be like, oh, yes, good. That's why I can't give you a recommendation. Or a referral, like, understand if you guys don't have a great relationship, or if you know that they're slammed and not taking new requests, just that EQ can be huge. On the flip side, if you're the really don't want to, I think on the most extreme side, you can be honest with them. I've done that. And I said, I keep a pretty tight line in how I do referrals and then how they're cared for. It's my reputation on the line. I know there were some issues with our last one. I'm just not comfortable. I hope you understand. If you're not so bold and don't want to be so honest, just say, I haven't talked to them in a while. I know they're slammed. We don't have a great relationship, right? And pull those white lies that we know so well in sales. What? Who said that?
I love it. And it's a great question. Great perspective. Thank you, panelists, for that. So we're going to move on to our next topic here, which is, and this is a fun one, right? How much personalization is too much? When do we go from being like, wow, that was really relevant, to like, wow, Will, I didn't know that you needed to know what my 401k balance was. That's a little bit creepy to get in like the first email. Val, let's actually have you kick us off on this. Like, where do you draw the line for your teams, and how can we think about like where that sweet spot is of just right Goldilocks personalization?
Yeah. Look, I think it depends a lot on like the people that you are reaching out to, because there was a point in time in my career where I was selling to sales leaders and marketers who were much more open to the cutesy type of, personalized emails. I think, given the personas that we sell to now, we've definitely had to adjust that a little bit more. That does not mean you should not be human, right? I still think that being human in sales and doing your due diligence and research goes a long way. But my one rule of thumb is be authentic. What I mean by that is, I've gotten reached out to by other, SDRs, for example, where they see that I've gone to University of Delaware and they have nothing to do with Delaware. They don't even live in the state or near the state, but they'll tell me that they've always been wanting to go to this random restaurant that they clearly just Googled, best restaurant, University of Delaware campus. So I think it's like, if you're gonna make a personal connection like that, make sure it is a true, authentic connection that you can speak to, because that will definitely help build some rapport. I learned actually from someone else that there's a prospecting checklist that you can run. that really helps you do your personalization to the point where it is authentic, but it's professional, and it shows that person that you know them and that you've done that due diligence. And so the checklist is either on the individual level, the account level, and then the CRM level. So individual level, meaning, yes, go on their LinkedIn, go on their Twitter. I've even had SDRs that have found charities that prospects are supporting and go and make a donation in their name. Like, that is huge. That's meaningful, right? On the company level, go and read the 10K, go and look at the executive leadership team. What is the company focused on right now? And how can you relate that into your messaging? And like Lem alluded to earlier, it's like you need to show value in every single touch point that you're doing, because otherwise, why are these high-level professionals going to give you their time? And then the third is the CRM, right? Like, if you are an organization where you're fortunate enough to have a CRM, a Salesforce of some sort, do the work and like go and search for the company name or the person's contact information so that you can reference a previous conversation that you had. It just really makes you look more credible to your prospects and will probably increase your chances of getting that meeting.
No, there's certainly, I love the idea of being really planful and deliberate about that. And then that gives you the opportunity to actually have some good conversations there. Lem, I know you're passionate on especially on the data front, and also being a little bit too cute, but how do you draw that line? When's it too much?
Well, I'm a California resident for the last 30 years, but I'm a New Yorker at heart. So I definitely think you want to be authentic. And I think that's a great point, Val. But I think cutesiness is just another way of saying you're failing in the data side, because you're not really knowing enough about my company. So I think, Val's your point about the danger about kind of asking the reps to go and do the 10K and all that stuff is a lot of times, some reps can do it, some reps can't, and they have a hard time. So you want to have a data tool or in your CRM that has that stuff already, so it's a link away. We do that. Lots of other places do that, but there really should be 30 seconds where I could have a tool to go through and get everything, the basic firmographics, number of locations. And I think your point about the social graph, there's what they're doing on Twitter, but also kind of what they're doing on what the companies have posted videos on YouTube. If they're doing advertising or marketing, what is their CPC campaign talking about? A new bundle? Is Cisco coming out with something that is really special for a certain segment of business that you think you could help with? So those little tidbits to put in your outreach will make all the difference, especially if it's somebody who is, once again, really running the company. Because that person, she or he, has put a lot of sweat equity in a new kind of pricing or package or bundle or tech offering. And they're going to know, okay, well, at least somebody's seeing it. So they're going to appreciate that.
Totally. I think, to add to that, I think we've got to break the email down into a few different components, right? So I think we can write a great email, but if we don't hook them with the subject line in the first sentence, doesn't matter what the hell is in there, because they'll never open it, right? So if it's salesy, if it's like, oh, do you need data at scale or whatever the hell it is that we're selling them? Nope, bye. Unless you are targeting somebody who has a bleeding problem and says, we could use data at scale. So I think, the cutesy thing and like of the personalization, I think exactly to Val's point, it has to be authentic. This is where I think we can also just light on fire the concept of personalization at scale. I see you went to University of Delaware. Val, is that where you went? Sorry, I should know. You said it. Yeah, earlier. Okay. Yep. I see you went to University of Delaware. Would you like to buy my CRM product? No, what about it? Like, what about the fact that I went to University of Delaware? Like, connect with me on it. If you don't connect with me on it, then find something else to connect with me on. And I think that sometimes it is bone dry and you're like, what on earth am I going to connect with people about? But no matter what, you've got to make it authentic, and there has to be a so what, right? So for the times we get like, loved your podcast, I listened, read your articles. Which ones? Why? What do you love about it? Give me a point of view. I think the middle of the email, right? Sorry, actually on the show me, you know me, on the personalization front, just think of that subject line as really only needing to make sense to the person receiving it, right? So if I am writing something, let's say I've got an authentic connection to Delaware and I write something about I don't know, like the bar, like the fish and chips place or whatever, I don't know, that is like known for, that your University of Delaware is known for. Maybe I just put the name of that plus Sam Sales Consulting. You have absolutely no idea what Sam Sales is, but you know what that place is. And you're like, and then if I write the first sentence like, hey, Val, we've yet to be properly introduced, but I'm Sam McKenna, whatever. If you read that and then see we have yet to be properly introduced, you might be like, well, maybe we should have been properly introduced. And I'm getting you to do at least one thing, which is the toughest thing to do to begin with, is open my damn email, right? We've got to get through that first part first. Second thing I'll just say before I promise I stop talking is just the meat of the email, right? So to Lem's point of like, what are we putting in there? Do we even know if we can solve a challenge for them? Are we even targeting the right person? I think the meat of the email has to solve a direct challenge for that buyer persona in a hypothetical way, right? Like what we're trying to get the buyer to say is like, this seems interesting and this is an issue we have or something we'd like to solve. And this seems like it could help us, but I need to learn more to see if this is a right fit for us. So let's book a call together. So I'll give you just a great example. Having run LinkedIn Sales Navigator at LinkedIn, one of the things we wrote is like, we've got a great process around job changes that can open up a whole new stream of SQLs for you guys. Are you guys currently tracking job changes? If not, we should really talk. And people are like, huh, we're not, we should be, we'd love to know your process. Let's book a meeting. We're not saying at LinkedIn Navigator, we can give you this and that. We're not doing that. We're thinking of a challenge that that person probably has, something we can give them and hooking them into a conversation. That's what we really need to think about. Okay, I lied, one more thing. In the meat of that email, read your email. If you can pick up the meat of what you guys are talking about in that email, of what your value proposition is, and if you can dump it in 5,000 other companies' value proposition, we help you open up pipeline, we help you scale faster, we help you close deals faster, whatever the crap is. If it doesn't speak to uniquely what you do, you're going to miss the mark. Why you? Why now? I know I'm ripping that off from somebody. I can't remember who it is, but anyway, but truly, like, what is it about you that you're going to bring to the table? Okay, I'll stop talking.
No, I think this is an amazing point for the team at MSP, right? As we've scaled our team, we've brought on folks that don't have the context of the difference between a vendor A and a vendor B. And then you're like, okay, cool, you're gonna spend a half an hour, read the websites of all of these amazing companies. And they're like, it all sounds like it does the same thing. Like, yep, it's a challenge there. Will, I know, and I think, Will, you've probably got a very interesting perspective on this, just given the nature of who you're selling to, in addition to where you sit organizationally.
Yeah, Richard. I mean, cybersecurity, it's important to every industry, and even more so today, in the global age, digital age. There's not a lot, if you went around the room in a sales room asking people about cybersecurity, chances are they've got no idea what you're talking about. And Sam, to your point, by the way, I think you must have been a whiz at cover letters as a kid. But to your point, I really picked up on two things you said. I think no matter what it is, an outreach, a call, email, you have to have two reasons behind it. The first is the reason for my call, right? I've done my data, I've done my research. I know why my product is the right fit for you or the right fit for your company. The second reason is why I'm calling you, because I've looked at, to your point and to Lem's point above about, having the data beforehand to do the research. I'm contacting you because you are the subject matter expert at your firm. You are the economic buyer. I've identified you because of my research. In cyber, we talk a lot with IT teams or CISOs, and the things that we dive into, they're very high level, even on a discovery call. So you need our SDRs and our BDRs. They have to be able to do the research to target these people. They have to use the tech stack that's provided to them. Otherwise, chances are they're going to say, "Hey, sounds interesting. I've got no idea what you're talking about. I can't action on this. Goodbye." Right, or they'll just archive the email and put it in the trash, to Sam's point.
And I think also in that environment too, you have also the challenge of it's a CISO, and they're like, where the hell did you get this data? Like, how do you know that information? Like, definitely not working with you. You scare me.
Yeah, really. You can't scare them away on the first email, right? If you have a couple points, if you know who they are, if you know their alma mater or something, pick one, right? Don't pick all. I've gotten emails in the past where it's, hey, Will, I saw that you were on student council in this small town of this, and you placed second in the track meet. Like, my cousin got placed first, let's book a call. Like, it's just, that's scary, right? Because you've never met them. Chances are you might not have even heard of their company. And now seemingly they're coming on a little too strong. So just, if you have a few, tuck the, a couple in your back pocket, use them down the line if you need to, but just pick one.
I think great points. And folks, I know we put this in the chat panel. We've got these panelists for about another 10, 12 minutes. So we've got some questions in there queued up. Please do keep adding those in there. And we're actually going to move on to the Q&A portion of our session here today. Great questions so far. Lem, I want to get started with you. This is a question from Mike. Best alternatives to just checking in or, kind of bumping this back to the top of your inbox. I know we've all got opinions on it, but Lem, let's start with you.
Yeah, well, I think it goes back to what we were talking about, that there are little snippets of data about that company that can easily be found. Most companies are doing Facebook ads, fortunately or unfortunately. Most companies are running CPC. You can learn a lot from what a company is advertising in terms of their text copy and their advertising copy in a text link ad. So just putting those little things like notice you're doing that. The other thing, though, I think that can't be underestimated is that, this is a process, and depending on who you're going after, it's 5, 10, 15 touches, right? So it's okay to say, free trial. If you have an offer where you're going to do something free for them, which a lot of companies do, you can say that in the next email, and you can say it in the next email, and you can say it in the following email, because they might not have gotten it. So I think that's an important thing. The other thing is that I think we all have to realize that most companies, when it comes to what we're selling, what we're selling, have been burned in the past, right? How many times have we heard that? I used something like you, they said something, we used them, and it didn't work out. So that's a good way and a follow-up email to acknowledge that and to say, we're different and we're happy to just show you at no cost or do a free trial. What can I give you for free? What would you like to see? You can also pose it as a question to them and ask them to be, what would you like? What would it take to have to continue the conversation? So those are some things I'd recommend.
I'll pull back from Val's word of earlier of authenticity too in what we do to nurture our clients. And I think that that's what we do instead of just checking in. So if you say just checking in, you're just selfishly checking in. Like, hey, did you read this proposal yet? Like, can you answer me? Right, that's what we're doing. And I think it's really important at any stage of the buying cycle, even if we're going through contract and T's and C's and all of that stuff, to still nurture our clients. So think about how you can authentically do that. Do you have a link to a webinar, a podcast, an article, something you saw, something, you even highlight about their own team that you saw that you want to say, like, this is awesome, I thought I'd share it. The authentic part comes in where you make no ask whatsoever in that email, right? So if I'm chasing Val for a proposal, I'm just going to say, hey, I saw this about the team, like, I'd love to see it, blah, blah, blah. If I did that same thing and said, by the way, do you have 10 minutes to talk about the proposal? She'd be like, this is just a guise to get me to talk to you about the damn proposal that I don't want to talk to you about. So just be authentic. Shameless plug for our Sam Sales shorts that are on our website. We literally recorded a piece just about this today, how to do it, how to nurture your prospects and how to not ask for that specific thing. The win for me is if I send Val a nurture email, I'm just on her brain. She sees my name in her inbox. She's like, oh yeah, that girl. And then hopefully in a positive way, right? And then that's it. I don't need to ask for something. She already knows what I want. So you can bail on the just checking in and just try value, give them something positive. One more thing. I did this, I know one of our clients is a large financial institution. One of their senior VPs does a tremendous job on LinkedIn. We did a big training for them, but she's really good. My nurture email was highlighting a positive person in their organization to their executive team. You're like, look at what she's doing. This is really great. That's all I had to do. Highlighted somebody positive, said, don't forget I exist and you should spend more money with us. That's it, really easy.
It was a big part of Jeremy Donovan's conversation yesterday too, of like thinking it through from the customer and the customer journey and the prospect and where they're at. Like the just checking in, I love that idea, but like that's freaking selfish. That's about you.
Yeah.
That's not about them, and help them move through the journey here. A bunch more live questions coming in. Keep them coming in. If we don't get to all of them, we'll be sure to follow up with folks afterwards. Val, I want to direct this one to you first to kick us off here. How do you deal with like the no answer to emails? Like it feels like you're just screaming into the void.
I love this question because, I feel like we're all too familiar with this, right? So here's my take on this front. So first of all, you have to evaluate, what your messaging has been. Have you gotten any sort of engagement with this person at all? If not, then space out the next, conversation or the next outreach. Don't hit them every, 3 or 4 days because they're clearly not responding. My next, piece of advice here is similar to what everyone was saying in the last question, which is why don't you or send something with no ask, right? Just something of value, something that a lot of my SDRs do, and actually a lot of the AEs do as well, is follow accounts on LinkedIn, follow your top people on LinkedIn, so that when something interesting happens to or for them or involving them, it's a notification that pops up on, in your emails, and you can reference that in outreach. But I think it's all about, if it's no answer, have you given them anything where there's zero ask? If not, then I would say go ahead and do that. If it's been a long time and they have not responded, I think it's okay to send a breakup email. I know that a lot of people have conflicting, feelings on that, but I think it's totally okay. And we actually get a lot of responses on this email, which is the last email, which is hey, I've reached out to you a bunch of times. I really don't want to, badger you. If you're not the right person, I totally understand. Would welcome an introduction to that. But if anything changes, or if you have any questions, I'm here for a resource for you moving forward. And kind of just end it there, right? Because you got to be mindful of your time and your prospects' time too.
We put a line in the sand for those emails too. That's I know you haven't responded yet. Have you been eaten by an alligator, hit by a truck? I mean, I still see these, you guys. I feel like I'm in 1999.
That was funny when it first came out, and now it's the same thing as the bumping this back up to the top of your inbox or just checking in. You're not differentiating yourself at all. You are making it very evident that it's a template and a cadence, and you just sent it.
It's funny, right? A little pulse check. Hey, checking in. Still got a pulse, but it's not authentic, and it's not genuine. It's not personalized, right? All these things that we're hitting on today.
Yeah, and I love the way that Val says that, at the end, if things this might not be a priority for you right now, if things change, et cetera. I love that because it's also just being, we talk about being a gracious loser all the time at Sam Sales, be really positive even when you don't get the way that you want, right? Still find a way to give, and just that kind word of it might not be a right fit, or you might not be the right person, et cetera. If anything changes, please let me know. It's so gracious and kind and just polished. And what a great way to set yourself apart again.
I like the angle that you all have on that. I think it's pretty important. And I think it's funny too, we were talking about, somebody actually put this in the comment section. If you did did you fall down the well email, not buying from you. It's just what is this? So this is probably the last question that we're going to take live, because this is a meaty one. And I'm going to read it kind of fully here. It's a question from Justin Brown. Great question. Talking about how do you feel as panelists around kind of the surround or the bottoms up strategy, where you meet with maybe the users to get some perspective on organizational pain, and then you use all of that research to go to the boss or the big boss or the person who's going to be your economic buyer. And Justin's self-aware on this. He's he knows the answer is it depends on segment, Curious about when you've seen that work really well and when you've seen it not work really well.
I can take this one. Because we've done this with our marketing team. I've done some analysis on it personally. What we found is when you do this, there a couple of things will happen. If they do, chances are they're not. One, you're not talking to the economic buyer. You're not talking to the decision maker, but you are talking to an ally, which can be very beneficial. And it can have an impact, in the future, to build that relationship with the company, because you've made an ally out of this person, and chances are they can help direct you to the right person to speak with. But on the flip side, what I found was doing this can elongate the sales cycle, sometimes significantly. We all know that it takes, about 5 to 7 people to make a buying decision these days. And if the more people you talk to that maybe are not in that grouping, it's just going to delay the process further, because then we're playing that calendar invite game. Hey, you mentioned that this person might be the best person to talk to at your company. I reached out to them, they didn't respond to me, but we're talking. So can you pester them? You know, it can rub the relationship the wrong way. But I mean, it's, yeah, was it Jason's point? It is a give or take, you know, it's sort of an exceptions based situation.
Yeah.
I do think Will, it's a good point. It can delay the cycle a lot. I think obviously depending on what you're selling, talking to somebody who is more analytical or a researcher in maybe data or operations, sometimes you can get the meeting quicker. And if you present some hard facts and you can kind of exchange something, then it's a great way, to Will's point, to then be able to go back to the decision maker and say, hey, I had an exchange with Janet over here, and she brought some interesting things. Happy to share with what I learned or what she was thinking with you when you get a chance. So I do think that surrounding an account, especially if it's a right account. So once again, if it's the right customer for you and you know in your heart it's the right customer, why not? It's the way to get it.
I think one of the important parts, and Will, you mentioned this, you can spend a lot of calories on this. And folks, I hate to break it to our panelists here, but we're at time right now. So let's just take a quick spin through key takeaways. I know I've got like a page of notes here, but Val, let's just start with you. For key takeaways, let's just keep these tweet length out of respect for time.
Yeah, I know we talked about so much, but I feel like, you know, the key takeaway for me is take the time to get to know your buyers, but also your product, because I think we talked a little bit before about rating 10Ks, and there's some reps that do a good job with that and some that don't. I think the ones that do are the ones that fully understand the product they are selling, so that they can pick apart the key pieces to the 10K, because it can be daunting to someone who has no rhyme or reason into reading it. But if you know what your product does really well and you know the value it can provide to an organization, then you're much more confident in your outreach, whether it's over the phone or email. So take the time to be a sponge, learn as much as you can about the people that you sell to and the product that you're selling.
Mm-hmm.
Will?
Yeah, great point, Val. Yeah, I think, you know, when I think about sales, you can't be you don't be a one-trick pony, right? You have to adapt your strategy to the market and the level of the individual that you're going to outreaching to, or you're going to be discussing with. You know, what you should remain constant throughout it is the great salesmanship, is all those intangibles that make great salespeople. Keep that going throughout, from the first email all the way down to the deal desk, to the contract negotiation, right? Stay cordial, be authentic, to your guys' points earlier, and be professional. You know, I think, but it begins by understanding who they are, doing the research, and having a dynamic strategy that you can manipulate, plug and play as you go along.
Awesome. Sam?
I'll latch on to Val's point. So I think if you don't understand your product well and you're trying to figure out how to sell it better, how to really articulate the value proposition to your buyers, odds are you've got your buyer internally at your company, right? There's somebody with that title, with that buying title internally, or you have a really good client for your organization that would be willing to give you some time to really talk through your strategy. One of the things that we did often was just send our emails to our chief marketing officer and say, would you buy this if we were sending it to you? And he would say, this is what you need to change. You're really missing the mark here. Do that. Sit down with somebody inside your company, rock through that stuff, right? And really nail what it is you guys do.
And last, but certainly not least, Lem?
Well, I would just say it's a great panel. So I think we've all had a lot of fun. I increasingly think that we've set up, this industry is setting up BDRs especially, but also AEs for failure, because there is so much noise. And when we go into companies and look at their data, that's really where it starts. So you have to have your data enriched and your prospects really segmented in the right way, because unless you don't do that, it doesn't matter, as we've talked about, whether you're cute or whether you have the right cadence or whether you're smart or whether you can look at the 10K, you're set up for failure. So I would urge the folks that do the data responsibly, that now is always the right time to relook at your data set and to get better at it. And the folks that are on the sales side, they should also go back to their folks that control the data, right? And really make them scrub it again and get it better, because garbage in means garbage out.
This was phenomenal. Thank you all panelists so much. Lem, Sam, Val, Will, thank you all for your time today. Once again, thank you to our sponsors. This wouldn't be possible without them, in addition to our panelists. And next up on our summit here is, for the first time ever, we have Kevin Katie Dorsey talking about the future of, it's not just sales development, it's the future of sales. I am really excited. I don't know how we're going to fit it all in an hour, much like this panel. Katie is phenomenal, and I'm surprised it's taken him this long to get him on something for MSP. But Lem, Sam, Val, and Will, I know you're all incredibly busy. Thank you so much for sharing this wonderful knowledge with our audience here today. Please stay safe and have a wonderful rest of your day. Take care, everybody. I'll see you soon.